I mean, if you have Ed Henry and Rachel Campbell Stuffing, nothing will stop you.
No, we're unstoppable.
All morning long.
Great to see you both.
Great to see you guys.
So good to be
Awesome
here.
to be here. It's 7 o'clock on the island of Manhattan. The rest of America is just waking up. Stay in bed, folks. Just watch us. Hang out with us. No need to get up.
The president promised we'd get tired of winning. And you know what? He had a big victory overnight. He did.
We are not tired of winning. And that is where our Fox News alert comes from this morning. A major victory on Capitol Hill for President Trump and the GOP overnight. The Senate narrowly passing the most sweeping changes to our tax code in a generation.
The key vote finally coming just before 2 a.m. this morning.
Ellison Barber is live in Washington to break down the bill. Ellison.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, it was a big victory, but it's not over just yet. The House and Senate have now approved two different bills. Before this makes it to President Trump's desk, they need to come together and make an agreement on the bills, merge the two of them. That, of course, starts when they go to conference. The House is expected to vote to go to conference Monday night. So here are some changes to the Senate bill. One is keeping the alternative minimum tax to provide more revenue. Another, allowing property tax deductions up to $10,000. And then keeping the medical expense deduction for the next 2 years. Republicans passed this with 51 votes. Many of those changes were last minute and meant to convince holdouts like Maine Senator Susan Collins. Vice President Pence seemingly convinced Arizona Senator Jeff Flake with promises related to immigration.
I've been saying unless we can get started on immigration reform, and that starts with DACA, that's should be the easy part. And so I've been talking about that to the Vice President quite a bit and others, and got a good commitment to work on DACA quickly.
Some of the changes were handwritten in the margins of the bill, adding to the frustrations of Democrats. Ultimately, every Democrat voted no.
As we've said over and over and over again, the $1.5 trillion deficit, only to be filled, only requires us to grow 0.4% over the next 10 years.
This bill is so slanted towards the wealthy and powerful and rains tax increases upon millions of middle-class citizens.
Only one Republican senator voted against this bill, Tennessee's Bob Corker. He had concerns over the impact to the national debt. Pete, Ed, Rachel.
All right. Ellison, we appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Ellison. Appreciate it.
Well, one step closer, as you heard, to giving American families an amazing Christmas gift, because the president has been talking about this, and a lot of naysayers in the media are saying they're not going to get this done. Republicans are going to be empty-handed heading into the midterm elections.
Except these Republicans knew that their butts were on the line if they didn't do it. So that always gets them going.
That's right. And the president tweeted about this tax vote last night about 2 a.m. He was up. Were you? Well, I wasn't, but now we're bringing it to you. We are one step closer to delivering massive tax cuts for American families across America. Special thanks to Mitch McConnell and Chairman Orrin Hatch for shepherding our bill through the Senate. Look forward to signing a final bill before Christmas. So, I mean, we cannot understate the importance of this passage. Listen, it has to go to conference. They have to pass another bill for it to be law. But the Senate has been in its own way for a long time. As the president says, little Bob Corker still voted against it. Yes. Don't know why. Senator Bob Corker did not vote for it, a purported conservative, not voting for tax cuts. So he's got his own impediments, but they passed it. And to get it into law could be a huge boost for the economy.
Well, and you know what caught my eye is Maria Bartiromo was interviewing the chairman of UBS for this weekend's Wall Street Week. And even before the tax cuts passed, he talked about how this economy is coming back strong. Watch.
I think the economy is clearly coming out of crisis mode. There is more optimism. Governments that come in recently are not anymore impressed by the crisis. They're looking forward to change their economies. And the economy is doing the best it ever has over the last 10 years. This has been the first IMF meeting I attended where the IMF did not revise down their growth forecast, but revised it up. So we're in the good part of the cycle. The good times are now.
The good times are now, and that was before the tax cut passed.
That's right. You can expect, if this passes, and we still have to go to conference, it still has to go to the president's desk. But if this passes, we've already seen an economy on overdrive. I think it's going to be even more. And I think the president comes to this with a lot of credibility. I mean, he has done a lot of things on his own to get the economy where it is right now.
On regulation. He's been a pro-business president. If you have a pro-business policy that ultimately incentivizes companies to stay here or not leave,
on social
it
media,
could have a game-changing effect.
On social media, people are asking a lot of questions. What's actually in the latest version? You heard Ellison saying they were writing in the margins. They were making changes right before the vote. So not everybody knows. We have a CPA who's breaking it down for you every hour this morning. Friends at foxnews.com. What is your specific question? We will get the answers from him.
Ed's been like, this is what I make every year. Tell me how much I'm going to save. And they're like, Ed, it's not about you. It's about the viewers.
Don't I get more for being here with you?
What?
They should pay me a bonus for being with you.
You have to deal with it. It's called a Pete bonus.
All right,
not
but you know what?
has to deal
Big
with
tax cut? And what is on the front page?
That's
all
right.
across America. Not the tax
What's
cut.
on the front page, Ed?
It's Russia, Russia,
Of
Russia.
course, yep. The failing New York Times with a big old photo. Flynn pleads guilty, will aid inquiry.
Do you think they did this on purpose? Like they did this plea, have him plead guilty specifically on this day to kind of cover up the tax?
You know what?
Win?
Maybe. I don't know. But I'm just saying the so-called mainstream media, which is not mainstream at all, they're all left-wingers. They love this headline because it distracts against it. And look at that. That's perfect.
Yeah,
Russia. Ed, when will Russia end?
It won't.
Is Russia here? Are you Russian?
No, let's ask Russia Limbaugh.
Okay.
Here's what he said.
So there you have it. They're all excited. Mueller did the deed on the right day. Mueller did the deed to sweep the tax cut deal off the table and to tick everybody off. This is, in Jonathan Martin's opinion, the swamp banding together, the establishment coordinating its efforts to continue to destroy Trump and muddy the waters. The tax bill is going to pass. As far as McConnell and Ryan are concerned, none of this today is a legal problem. It's a bit of a political problem, but it doesn't present any legal problems to them or their tax bill. The tax bill is going to pass. But I don't have any doubt that the timing of this thing today may not be coincidental. Because look at all of the news that it swept off the front pages, and look at what it put back on the front page. Trump colluded with the Russians to steal the election from Hillary.
So what, Ed, so what of the news we have today proves that, as Rush said, that Trump colluded with the Russians?
Where I'm with you is that there's no new evidence of collusion, and that's where this started.
Nothing.
And so I agree with you that this sort of grand conspiracy pushed by Democrats is not there yet. Where I will differ with you and where I think you should open your eyes a bit, okay, with all due respect.
They're open.
Okay. The one-time national security advisor, I get he was there for like a week and a half, but he was inside the White House. Not just the campaign, like Manafort.
But
Hot
after
minute,
the election.
Gone from the campaign. But after the election, he's in the White House. He's in the Oval Office of the president. He's briefing him on the most sensitive national security matters. And he lied to the FBI. That is a federal crime. Now,
of course,
it doesn't prove collusion, but it raises some real questions about what Michael Flynn was hiding. You would agree?
Yeah, but sure. But it was after the election. If anyone asked him to reach out to the Russians, that would be a reasonable request from the National Security Advisor.
And so tell the FBI this is a reasonable request.
So after the fact, listen, the guy's like feeling defensive, not telling the truth. It's a crime.
Right.
It is what it is. But it doesn't prove anything. So if you turn the channel, you're going to watch people try to this dot to Russia. Don't change it because they'll be all Russia, Russia, Russia. It's like the headlines of all our papers this morning. It proves nothing, but people are going to go spastic about it.
Right. Well, we already knew that Flynn had a shady sort of past. I mean, his relationship with the government of Turkey, and
yes.
I'm surprised he wasn't charged on that, by the way. But
well, he made a deal.
Yeah, but I will say that's correct. But I will say this: I think Russia presents some problems for the Democrats because the more they focus on Russia, the less they're focusing on Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and really figuring out, really doing some soul searching to figure out why they lost the election. They did not lose the election because of Russia. They lost the election for a bunch of other reasons, including immigration, including the economy, jobs, all kinds of things. And I think this is sort of continuing the neurosis there.
What you're admitting, though, is that the so-called mainstream media is in cahoots with the Democrats for a narrative that may benefit the Democrats, and it doesn't benefit them.
Here's where I'll shock you and agree with you, which is that, interestingly, by lying to the FBI, Michael Flynn now hurts himself as a witness against potentially President Trump or anyone in the White House. Because if Robert Mueller comes forward and says, Michael Flynn is cooperating and saying that Donald Trump told him to do this, well, you know what? Michael Flynn lied to the FBI, committed a crime. So when do we believe him? It actually hurts him as a witness if he turns against the White House. So that will be interesting.
You're right. He's in a tough spot. He's made a deal, clearly. But nothing he's said, or I think will say, will indict this White House.
Listen, there's been so many leaks. If there was something on Trump, I am absolutely convinced we would have known by now.
Yep. All right. The failing New York Times would have it on the top of their paper, but they don't. They did the best they could.
So much news this morning, and the Kate Steinle case is still front and center, too.
One of them, you're right. Coming up in the Kate Steinle case, one reverend. Is that a reverend?
He's a revered reverend.
He's a revered
Suggests we should turn the other cheek on sanctuary cities. Listen.
I pay my taxes as a citizen to my local government to protect local taxpayers, and those taxpayers include undocumented Americans.
Don't tell that to our next guest, whose son was killed by an illegal immigrant.
Heartbreaking. And it's a story we've been following for years. Jesse Ventura's lawsuit against the widow, a lawsuit against the widow of American sniper Chris Kyle and his estate this morning. We have a brand new update, and it's big.
We are back with a Fox News alert. The DOJ putting out an arrest warrant for this man, Jose Inez Garcia Zarate, the illegal immigrant who was deported 5 times and acquitted this week in the Kate Steinle case.
This hitting close to home for our next guest, whose 17-year-old son was killed by an illegal immigrant in Los Angeles in 2008.
Jamil Shaw Sr. joins us now with his reaction. Jamil, so your reaction to this verdict, for a lot of people, it's academic. For you, it's personal.
Yeah.
What was your reaction?
You know, it was. I expected it. I remember telling people he's going to walk. They're going to, they're going to make him a sacrificial lamb, so to speak. He's going to be the one that so-called takes down Trump. That's all they cared about. So I figured it. I talked about it on my show. I wasn't surprised. When I heard about it, I was driving down the street. I heard it on the radio. I just figured that was, was going to happen. But still, that, it pissed me off, though. It's not like I was no big deal. It pissed me off how they don't care about us. And this guy, piece of garbage, they act like he's just so innocent, and Kate Steinle's family is mourning forever.
Jamil, tell us a little bit more about your son.
He was a good kid, he was doing everything he was supposed to do. When he was 5 years old, I started working with him in sports. I was determined to get him a scholarship. We played baseball, basketball, football, 2 baseball seasons a year, winter, summer, 2 basketball seasons, played football, ran track. We were playing golf. I was trying everything. I just was determined that I had to get him to college. And, I had to get him to the promised land. 18 was my goal. I got him to 17 in 2 months.
It's such a tragic...
and to see him just all that hard work. Yeah,
it's such a tragic story. And there's so many other families. I mean, this is what we're learning about. Let's take a look at, I want you to take a look at this clip from last night from Reverend Ryan Eller, the executive director of Define American. Let's take a look at this clip.
I think where we start getting into really troubled waters is when we, talk more about sanctuary cities and relationships between local governments and federal governments, and somehow make this more about immigrants and immigration as opposed to this really tragic and unfortunate case. In Leviticus, it says, treat the immigrant as a citizen among you. I pay my taxes as a citizen to my...
Of course it does, and he knows that. That's why he's running, talking that mumbo jumbo. Just because he has on his collar, he thinks that he's an expert. They always want you to walk a mile in their shoes. Why don't they walk a mile in our shoes? How about he gets in a casket, we'll bury him for a while so he could see what it feels like to be dead, He think it's all good that we're so, I don't care about illegal aliens, My son was murdered. He was walking down the street in America. He actually thought he could do that, and he was wrong. He was shot dead by an illegal alien on his 3rd gun charge. And then we hear people like that want us to turn the other cheek. I mean, why do we have laws? We got illegal aliens in the gangs. We're on their third gun charge, you know, and then we're supposed to just be okay with our family members being dead. You know, why don't he jump in the casket, see what it feel like?
Incredibly powerful. You're saying so much of this is also resistance to Trump.
Oh, yeah, that was the main thing, you know. I mean, the people down there and the jury, they were all activists, you know, left-wing nut jobs, you know. You got the prosecutors. They did us the same way, Pete, when we were in L.A. Did the same thing, but I wouldn't go for it. We had to get rid of 2 prosecutors. We had to change judges. I had to pretty much say, I'll burn the city down if you guys don't try to do that. They did the exact same thing with Kate Steinle, but they couldn't get away with it because the district attorney was a conservative.
And you did get a death penalty for him. Jamil, your story is powerful. We're so grateful that you're telling it. It's such an important time. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Now, First Lady Melania Trump, the target of sickening attacks over the White House Christmas decorations.
Yep, of course.
Take a look at this. Comparing it to a horror movie. Would they have done that if she was a Democrat?
And we all remember this commercial saying chicken soup helps fight off a cold. But is it really true? The science on the back of an envelope just in. We'll bring it to you.
You might charges including concealing of death, burglary, and obstruction of justice. Police say evidence gathered during the probe has them believing Mariah is dead. They have yet, though, to find her body. And police making 2 more arrests in the brutal MS-13 murder where the victim was stabbed, yes, over 100 times. 3 people in total now facing murder charges for the September killing in Maryland. As many as 6 other suspects still believed to be at large, actually. Cracking down on the dangerous MS-13 gang has been a top priority for the Trump White House. And Tampa police now confirming the McDonald's manager whose tip led them to a suspected serial killer will receive $110,000 in reward money. Yes, Delonda Walker alerting police Tuesday after Hal Donaldson, a co-worker, left a bag with his loaded gun inside. Police linking that gun to the 4 killings in the Seminole Heights area. Rachel?
Now, when First Lady Melania Trump unveiled this year's White House Christmas decorations, critics went on the attack. A columnist for Vanity Fair writing, quote, "Is it safe to assume that we have some clarity as to what she's been up to when she's not traversing the Great Wall of China or making an appearance at the turkey pardoning ceremony? Maybe." And online, some are comparing the Christmas decorations to a total nightmare. Begging the question, is there a First Lady double standard? Here with us today is Andy Oak. He is the author of Unusual for Their Time, On the Road with America's First Lady. He joins us now. So is there a double standard here?
Good morning, Rachel. Nice to be with you. It's not uncommon or unprecedented to criticize a First Lady, but it's very unusual to go after her about Christmas decorations. I find this highly... like I say, it's unusual. It's almost, I can't even imagine when it was done before. Vogue magazine last year with Mrs. Obama's decorations praised her, and rightfully so. They were gorgeous. They were beautiful. But this year, Vogue puts out like the top memes destroying Melania's decorations. And it's unfortunate because it's Christmas and everyone's supposed to be happy and enjoying things. And I think Melania's decorations are as beautiful as Michelle's were. They're both fantastic.
Well, Vanity Fair clearly has a bone to pick with Melania. They didn't even put her on the best dressed list, and we all know she's the most glamorous First Lady since Jackie O. And somehow she didn't make the list this year. But I will say this, very early in I think the first Christmas at the White House with the Obamas, they were trying to do an inclusive theme and thought about eliminating or not putting up the nativity scene, which has a long and storied history in the White House. This year, the Trumps are saying Merry Christmas on their cards. So there is a difference in how the First Ladies approach it. But you're saying that you think this has maybe to do with the Trump resistance movement. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, you know, First Ladies get a lot of heat for their husbands. This has been going on since the very first administration with the Washingtons. It's just this new feeling of just going so public about it and being vicious about the attacks and having it carry over to Christmas is where I have the problem.
Right. I thought she looked pretty angelic going through those trees, but people said they were gaudy. And again, the online comments have been off the hook.
Yeah, and, you know, from what I read, these trees and these branches are very popular now, and I thought it looked like a winter wonderland, and the colors they chose were good. And hanging the wreaths on the outside of the White House, which hasn't been done maybe ever before, but not in recent history, with the red ribbons. I think she's done a beautiful job, and I think the White House looks spectacular for the holidays.
Wendy, I'm actually going to be there on Tuesday. I'm the wife of a congressman, so we're invited to the Christmas party there on Tuesday. So I'll get to see this up close in person, and I'll be able to compare it to what I saw under the Obama years. I'm sure that, you know, it's hard for things not to be beautiful at the White House. But a really quick question. How much involvement do the First Ladies have in actually making the decisions, or is it their team as far as the decorations at the White House?
Well, each First Lady is different, but they all are very involved around the holidays. The first Christmas tree in the White House was the Harrison administration. It was upstairs in the second story for the family. Then Lou Hoover was the first one to bring it downstairs and make it public. But Jacqueline Kennedy has chosen a theme. She was the first Lady to choose a theme, and this has gone fairly consistently through every administration since. And the First Ladies are directly hand in hand involved with their staffs to put together these beautiful decorations for the country and the world.
Right. Well, listen, thank you. I love Christmas decorations. I can't wait to go on Tuesday. Thanks for sharing your insight with us. Thank you, Andy.
Safe travels down here. We'll see you.
You got it. Coming up, the ladies on The View jumping for joy over Michael Flynn's plea deal.
Michael Flynn promised full cooperation to the Mueller team and is prepared to testify that as a candidate, Donald Trump directed him to make contact with the Russians. Yeah!
Very odd. But that celebration was a bit premature. Dan Bongino has something to say about that. And it's a story we've been following for years. Jesse Ventura's lawsuit against the widow of an American sniper, Chris Kyle, and his estate. This morning, a major update.
And the nays are 49. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, as amended, is passed.
The tax cuts are passed. I can tell you.
2 a.m. last night.
Yeah. You know who's not
Were you
tired? No, I was trying to get some sleep because I arrived in New York about midnight because I was covering the tax cuts before that. But Dan Bongino is not tired of the winning. I can tell you that.
Never.
He's been calling for this for a long time. But Dan, I got to tell you, I was just looking at the Hill newspaper online, and they say there's a report that 6,000 tax lobbyists were working on this bill in D.C. The swamp was trying to preserve whatever little goody they could, but in the end, the president looks like he prevailed.
Yeah, he did. This could be a huge win if the Senate and the House can coordinate, get this on the president's desk. This is going to be a huge win. Listen, guys, you know, for 8 years, we were subjected to the liberal economic ideology, more spending, more government, more taxes. And finally, it looks like the train is turning around and headed back towards the freedom station, the economic freedom station here. More money in your wallets is going to be fantastic. It's a great development.
Is it, Dan, do you believe that these two houses, the House and the Senate, and we know all about that, are they going to be capable of coming together on something they actually agree on and put it to the president's desk?
Yeah. You know, Pete, they damn well better, or I'm serious. This party is toast, at least in the short term. I mean, they had one big promise over the last, 6, 7 years. We're going to repeal Obamacare. Everybody ran, and they blew it. They face planted right forward, head, meet desk, boom. They absolutely need this. And let me just tell you, Pete, I'm not an economist by trade. I was an MBA student. I was a finance guy. But I love economics, and I'm telling you, we are on the verge of something super special here. You know, I was watching Rachel yesterday on the 5, and I think it was Rachel who said, you know, you said something like, don't make the perfect the enemy of the good.
Right.
A great line, of course. And you were right. It's not a perfect plan, but we are on the verge of something very special here if this gets passed, and you're going to see some solid economic growth.
And don't forget, Dan, that Mitch McConnell kind of wily, sneakily stuck in that repeal the Obamacare mandate as well in there. So if that survives, we may get two for one punch there.
Yeah, and keep in mind, the individual mandate, Rachel, as you guys already know, was really a tax on poor and middle-income folks in America. You know, 90% of the individual mandate tax, the Obamacare tax, was paid by people making $75,000 a year. This was a major wallop to American wallets. If we get rid of that, too, this thing's a gold mine. It's not great, but it's going to be very, very good for American wallets.
Dan, outraged, though, still about the Kate Steinle verdict. Not guilty in that horrible, horrible murder. And the bottom line is you've got the Attorney General saying, look, we've got an arrest warrant out there. We're going to crack down on sanctuary cities. And the mayor, Mayor Ed Lee in San Francisco, doubles down. He says, quote, San Francisco is and always will be a sanctuary city. How do you react to that?
You know, this is really horrible. I mean, how do you read this story about this father, this poor father who's literally cradling his daughter as, you know, her aorta was severed by Zarate after he fired this weapon. She dies, Miss Steinle, of course, this beautiful, talented, wonderful young woman by all accounts. And instead of saying what went wrong here, and clearly it was a sanctuary city policy that allowed this person to stay in the country and commit this crime, what do? You double down on stupid? I mean, what is this really is this where the modern liberal movement is now, that political victories matter more than anything, even the life of your own citizens and the safety on their streets? I mean, this is really unbelievable.
Dan, isn't it where they are? I mean, you call it doubling down. Isn't it exactly where they are? If identity politics, racial politics are your platform, where else do you go?
Yeah, you don't have anything else, Pete, because your entire political agenda, I mean, really their campaign sign should say, you know, power first, citizens second, liberals, that is, because that's all they believe in. Everything with them is about control. And even if they have to, what was it? You have to break a few eggs, as some communists have always said in the past. If you have to break a few eggs to get an omelet, you'll do it. I mean, sadly, though, that breaking of a few eggs means people will die. Sanctuary cities are not safer, contrast to what liberals tell you all the time. That is nonsense. Those are garbage statistics. Sanctuary cities are actually becoming very dangerous places. Look at what's happening in L.A., where they've had some double-digit spikes in some of their crime rates. It's just insane.
Yeah. So, Dan, I opened up my failing New York Times, and the GOP is scrambling to pass the tax bill. Scrambling, but they passed it. But, you know, wall to wall, Flynn pleads guilty, will aid inquiry. So General Flynn talking to the Mueller investigation. A lot of people in the media very excited about this. We'll play one of them. Joy Behar had this to say about what could possibly be. Listen.
Breaking news. ABC News' Brian Ross is reporting Michael Flynn promised full cooperation to the Mueller team and is prepared to testify that as a candidate, Donald Trump directed him to make contact with the Russians. Yes!
Never mind that they corrected the candidate part, Dan, as you know. They later had to walk back that this happened in the campaign. It actually happened after the campaign. Still could be trouble. You know, he lied to the FBI. Let's not forget that. But they're dancing in the streets, some people in the media.
This is by the way, that Joy Behar scene of her. Like, someone, please, I'm begging you. We have a loyal listener, watcher, viewer base here. Someone make a meme out of that. Just please, because it is so indicative of media bias. Guys, here's the story. Only a liberal would believe that you could collude to win an election and then make contact with your fellow colluders after you won the election. Ed, the candidate part of that they got wrong, that they made contact when Trump was a candidate and they found, oh, no, later it was after he won. That's the whole story. That's like saying, headline, breaking news, man robs bank. Clarification, man makes withdrawal from ATM. I mean, the whole story goes out the window. That was the clarification, guys, was the story.
The money metaphor is so appropriate, too, because the stock market literally was taking a nosedive because of the ABC News report, which was false.
Listen, Brian Ross, who put that out there, and ABC, I mean, they left that up. I think it was for about 6 hours or so, that tweet. And I saw Joe Concha tweeted out that he said, look, this thing was retweeted 21,000 times or something, the story. And then the clarification was only retweeted like 1,000 times. You know that old line, right? A lie travels around the world, right? I mean, that was dangerous stuff.
I want my money back, Dan Bongino. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Guys. Sure.
Turning now to your headlines, police officers risking it all to save the life of a man trapped in a burning car. Officers in Illinois responding to a hit-and-run accident, finding a car fully engulfed in flames. Police dragging the man to safety after he refused to get out. The 71-year-old driver was fleeing the scene of an accident when his car hit a concrete barrier. 2 officers were injured. The estate of American sniper Chris Kyle and Jesse Ventura agreeing to dismiss the former Minnesota governor's defamation case. Ventura